Hey everybody, Stereo Azimuth, and today we're gonna do something really cool. I've got a Schiit Bifrost. Okay, this is a multi-bit version, but this guide will do for any of the full first generation Bifrosts, whether you have the very first one, whether you have 4490. We're going to be switching out the USB card. This one has USB 5, but you could have no USB. All right, you could have USB 2. There was a short period there was a USB 3. This is USB 5, and then now I got it in the mail, USB Unison. So this is a right now, guess whatever year it is, 2022. This is a $150 upgrade to their USB solution, which I think is fantastic, and everybody should upgrade if you can. Now, a Bifrost is user upgradable for $150. A Yggdrasil, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is also upgradable for $150. Gungnir, you have to send in because there is a firmware upgrade, so that you have to send in for $200. If you don't want to do this procedure yourself on a Bifrost or Yggdrasil, you're a little afraid to open it up yourself, you can send it in to Schiit for $200, or you can get $50 off and watch this guide. So all you need to do this are a screwdriver, small Phillips screwdriver, and I would suggest some like tape. It could be painter's tape, it could be packing tape. I use electrical tape, but that's really all we need. I've got a motorized one, but you don't have to use. I've got both actually, and I'll use both. But that's really all you need to take it apart and put it in. But it is a little bit tricky to get these apart. So I'll show you the tricks. I've done this a couple times. I was one of the beta testers for the Unison, so I've taken mine apart several times. So let's get right to it. Let's see what we got going on. So I'm going to switch, well, if I can, switch my screen here. So this is the top of the unit. It's top of the Bifrost. This is the bottom here. And the bottom has all these different screws. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and remove the top 4 screws. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So therefore we can get that out of the way. Motorized makes it so much easier, don't you think? Now all of these screws should be very, very small. So there's 2 different types of screws in these. There's the small ones and the big ones. Okay. So then we're going to switch to the bottom. Now the circuit board is attached to the bottom of the chassis, and the rest of the screws are attached to what I call like the casing around it, like the gray, this gray casing that is around. So there are some screws on the back that we have to take off. There's 4 screws on the back, but we'll get to that in a minute. The main thing is that you need to not take out the circuit board screws while you're taking out the like the container screws for the the chassis. So or for the container, I should say. This is the U is the chassis, the gray is the container. There are 5 screws that are the circuit board screws, okay? 5 screws. They are the ones that are not on the edge. They're in the middle. And there are 2 kind of like on the edge, but they're on the edge like here and here, okay? So it's basically these 2, this one, because they're in the middle. Those are pretty obvious. But then these 2. This one's kind of obvious because it's kind of offset. It's not in the middle. but this one will throw you off because you think that it's in the middle, but this middle one is actually a circuit board screw. It is not connected to the container. So let's take out all of the container screws. Okay, so I'm gonna just all on the edge. So I'm going to skip that one. Feel free to fast forward. And YouTube. Just almost done. So there, I've left all the ones in the middle. Now here's where your tape comes into play. Go ahead and tape up. What you're going to tape is just rip off a small piece. Okay? And you're going to tape off the button, because this button is not attached to anything in the inside. Once you take out the circuit board, it will float around and fly around. So what I do is I tape it, and I tape it kind of to the chassis, and you can press it in, it doesn't matter, and therefore it will stay. And then once we put the chassis back together, then it will stay put. Now the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to use regular screwdriver, and we're going to take off the 4 screws. There's a small screw here next to the output, and then there's a small screw here next to the toss link output. They're both the same size, so you don't have to worry about that, and they're black, so you know they go in the back because they're the black screws. And then the only 2 other screws that we have are the 2 next to the power input, and those are really huge. They're hard to miss. Okay. But once, and the reason why I saved these for last, is that once you get these done and you set it just like this, you should be able to lift this straight up without any problems. There we go. So this is what you should have. So because this isn't the bottom, this is actually the top. And some people will see like little holes, like the where the holes, I don't know if you can see. Mine isn't as dusty because I've already dusted it off, but there's holes usually like where you can see where the vent holes. But so yeah, so just, and then there is your circuit board. So the circuit board is completely intact. This is now completely free. You can now see that the bottom also, and actually let me do this, that the bottom, this is the top, right? Those are those 4 screws in the top. And if I switch over to the bottom, you can see I get the 4 corners. I get the 2 in the corner, one here, but this is back open. So that should give you an idea if you're looking at it upside down. This is what you would see with the output here. This is how it would look. This would be the front of the unit. All right, so put that aside for now. All right, we're almost there. So, and this is like a functioning unit. I mean, you could function it like this, but I really wouldn't. All right, so to get this out, because we have to get to this USB, there are 2 screws holding in the USB card. We can't just lift it out that are in here, because here's the USB card. So we have to get out the whole thing. So basically we're going to go back to those, and I'm going to flip it over this way. This is backwards from when I had it before. These 2 screws are holding on like a lot of the weight for the transformer and things. So I put my hand kind of underneath, and I'm holding the transformer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out these last 5 screws, and I'm going to not take them all the way out. These 4, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these out by hand. Okay, I'm going to set them aside. And these screws are also longer screws. Okay, there, if I can refocus. Hold on, come on, refocus now. That is the screw that goes into the circuit board. That is a chassis screw right next to it. So you can see there is a length difference between the two. So if you've got a, you take it apart, like you just went like blazes and took out all the screws just to get everything, just know that the longer screws are these 5 that go for the circuit board. The shorter screws are for the chassis into the container. I don't know what else to call that little thing. So it's a container, gray box, I don't know what you would call it. Now, once I've got all 5 of those out, I'm holding the bottom of the circuit board so it doesn't just fall completely down into the chassis. So I'm going to back it out most of the way. Once again, unscrew it by hand. So now I'm going to flip this over while keeping it like straight. Okay. And now all I'm going to do is back out I'm holding the sides of the circuit board, and I'm going to back it out very slowly. Make sure, oh, you know what? I forgot a screw. Nobody told me this. It's okay. I'll just redo it. No wonder I was holding it in so well. All right. Get those out of the way. Flip it over. All right. Now we should be able to pull out the circuit board very easily. You see that? So once I got kind of the board out, I can take the chassis, and here's the chassis. Voila, the U chassis. So there's your button that's in there, but it's being held in place. Okay, so just put that aside, and now you have your circuit board. So you can see here is the USB card, and if you can just get a eyeball the layout, power filtered input, transformer, power filter and regulation part. We have our USB. Underneath is our SPDIF and Toslink, because those are been the same since like the 80s, so we don't have to worry about those, the input chips there. And then this is the DAC board. So yours may look different if you have a 4490 or if you have anything else. This is a multi-bit board, and you can see here, like you can't see, but these two op amps here, I've actually modded mine, U15 and was that U16, I think, to different op amps, OPA 1656 from the stock op amps, and they're right there if you have the multi-bit board. I might do a video on that later, but for now we're just changing out the USB card. We can see here this one says USB Gen 5. You may not be able to see it, so I'm going to move the camera just to zoom in so we can get a better idea of what we're doing with the USB card. So this one says G5M. I know it's upside down, but surely easy to read. Now we have two screws, one in the back and one kind of on the side. And so I'm just going to take those out and put those aside because I want to make sure I get those back in. They're a little bit longer. They're almost the same size as the regular circuit board screws. Okay. Once you get those out, how this is still in here is that you have two rows of pins. Now I'm going to get out the multi-bit card. I'll open in my box. Fresh. It is in a static bag, okay? But I'm going to just show you right quick the board. I'm going to hold it by the ground. So this is the Unison board, and then you have two rows of feet. One has a longer row and one has a shorter row, just single rows. And that's how it's put into the board. So how we get it out is that I'm just going to pull up by kind of like very gently, just by kind of like rocking it back and forth very gently, and it should just come straight out. And you can see there's the pins, and you can see here's where the receptacle goes, the one longer row, the one shorter row. So now I'm going to put this aside and put it in the box. I'm going to take my Unison card, make sure I've got it oriented correctly with the plug going to the outside, the longer set of pins to the shorter set of pins. You just line them up very easily, and you just have to kind of look and line them up. You can kind of use the screw holes to get you close, and then once you kind of feel it into place, because and then now I've put it in and I'm one pin off because I can see my screw holes aren't lined up. So you don't want to do that. So now my screw holes are lined up, and because you can actually be like one pin off and it look okay, but where the screw holes, like if the screw holes aren't lined up perfectly, like something's wrong. So, and then just look, and on the circuit board just make sure, and I'll back up the camera just a little bit to make sure those feet are in there well, and everything looks good from the inside. Use a flashlight if you need to. So yeah, it looks fine. Looks fine to me. So I'm ready to put my screws in, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put them in by hand. And once again, I'm going to use my screwdriver, use my what I call my backup technique, which is basically you take a screw, put it into the hole, and then reverse it, actually go backwards until you hear a click. And then you're set, and it should be able to screw. Then you can go forward and set it all up. So there we go. So now my Unison board is in. Now I'm ready to put it back together. All right. So once again, I get my U chassis first. And of course it goes in where the connections are in the back. Now the tricky part of this are these three lights. Okay, these three lights are horrible. The Bifrost 2 and some of the newer ones have like flat lights, and they line up and they're great, but these you actually have to get the little piece in the hole. So a little trick that I've learned how to do, because I've done this many times, is that, and you can see the lights, you see how they're kind of like lined up. What I usually do is I take the light, I kind of align it the best I can, and then what I do is I pull it forward ever so gently. Don't pull it like completely forward, but just by like maybe 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so like that. So you see how one light, see how it's further forward? Make sure it's kind of even with the rest of the lights, because that's about where they were, but they still kind of move when you take the circuit board out. So now I'm just going to pull these others forward. I'm just tilting it up so I can get a better grip on the lights, because they will kind of mess you up. They will, like, and sometimes I have to tilt them forward or like up, because they're kind of like on stilts. And the reason why I do this, okay, is because now when I put the circuit board back in, I will now be able to kind of slide this, and I don't know if you can see where, make sure it gets in focus, where I can kind of slide them and kind of get them into the little holes. And I've got all of them except for that one. So now what I'm going to do is take my screwdriver, and I'm just going to poke it right quick. I'm going to Let's see if I can get this on camera. Maybe back up the camera a little bit because it's almost hitting it. So if you see, I've got almost that last one back there, and they've actually come apart because I haven't screwed it in. So just gonna have to, oh. Okay. And it's hard to get this on camera because, like, the camera is vertical and it really need to be horizontal. But there's about where I can get it. And then all I'm going to do is use a screwdriver and kind of push it down. Where I can kind of push it in there. And then if it doesn't work, then I take it back out. I go, okay, it's way off alignment. Let's redo it. Let's redo this alignment again. And you just keep going until you get it right. Now, I've had these legs break off before in trying to do this. And if you're ever wondered about, like, alignment, you can kind of put it this way and kind of get them into an alignment. It won't align perfectly, but they will kind of get there. Because they get all kooky. Real finicky. Sometimes you just have to use a screwdriver to kind of push them in. See, now I've got the far one in. Now the other two don't want to go in. Oh, I've got two. Now I'm just going to get the close one. And if you want to shine a light on the other end, that's another good tip too, is that you can use a light on the other end and it give you a better idea. Now, this last one, I can kind of use some, I don't have them here on my, oh, here they are. I can kind of use some of these to kind of get it into place because I'm going to have to lift it. There we go. Now they're all three in. Now, if you look here, and I'm going to hold the board in so you can kind of see, they are all sticking out of the front. Okay, so now they're all in. So now they are all in. So all we have to do now is just line up one screw hole correctly on the bottom. So once again, I'm going to hold the transformer very carefully. You know, I'm going to squeeze and then flip it over. And now I'm going to try to see if I can line up a screw hole. And I usually try to get this left screw hole because that's where the lights are. And to get it lined up. Oh. I'm going to use my reverse technique again. Oh, there's the click. Now I can screw it in. Now I'm not going to tighten it up all the way because I still need to move it around. So I'm going to get it like very close, and then I'm going to get one of the transformer sides and get it in there. And then I can go a little snug on that side because now I know it should be lined up really well. And then if I get the other two on, then I should be set to jet. You just have to be careful with those lights. They can be tricky. And you can see here, all three of my lights are still there. My button is still intact. I can take off the button now, the button tape. I can push back these and get them back to where they're in line. Just kind of give them a little push. So they may stick out a little bit. I don't really mind that a bit. And as long as I'm snug, you know, and you don't have to be like really tight. You just want to be, you know, to where it's tight. Don't wrench it down. So now all that's left is to put my gray container back on. That's all that's left. You just go back in reverse and just put that container on. And you're set. So just put this on, get it lined up, and, you know, oh, wrong screwdriver there. Get the two big screws on, and then the two little ones. And if you don't have one of these rubber work mats, I suggest getting one. I can put a link in the description for you guys if you like. And now I've noticed something, is that I can't get the toss link to line up, and that's because it's kind of off. So I'm going to undo these screws to get my toss link lined up better. And that's what happens when you do this kind of stuff. So I'll lift it up. You see how the toss link is kind of wonky? It's kind of bent. So I'm going to make sure it lines up well again. I think because I came in from an angle because of the computer. So there, that is better. And if I want to check, I'll use that as the first screw that I put in. Oh, wrong screwdriver. There we go. Perfect. Now these screws that go into the toss link and go into the input and go into the power, I mean, remember, you are screwing into plastic, not metal. So they only need to be snug, okay? Do not even wrench those down a lot because you're liable to strip it out. One of the Bifrosts that I worked on that I modded, like one of these power plugs was stripped out because somebody, you know, wrenched it down too much. The chassis is held, you know, the container is held on by these screws here. So that's what we're gonna put on. Also, I noticed I forgot a screw. Make sure you're using the long screws again for the, you know, for the circuit board and whatnot. And then you have, once you get to this point, you should have no long screws left. All the screws that you have should be the small screws. Once again, that these 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the ones for the circuit board. All the rest of them, the one, and I'll move like these two, and then these over here. So there's 6 on the bottom and then 4 on the top. And once again, I'm sorry for all of the focus. I'm going to get a new camera because of the focusing issues. But yeah, all we're doing is just putting this back together. My favorite thing to do with this, like, is if you put one in, like I said, just back out the screw till you feel it and hear it and pop into place, and then you won't cross thread. Okay, cross threading is bad. All right, I don't know, I skipped one. You don't have to tell me. I'm trying not to get my arm in the way too much for the focusing. Next time I should just set one focus and not let it autofocus, huh? All right, and I'm gonna flip it over, and I've got 4 screws for the top left. So no leftover screws, no lost screws. Always a good day when you have the amount of screws. Now, if you notice, I took it off with the motorized, but I am putting it back with the screws because it's easier just to get them started, and then it's almost as fast as screw them in this way. And that's pretty much it. We're done. Unison, USB, Bifrost, done. If I want to verify and plug it in, Windows or whatever, it should say Unison. Once I plug it in, I can take the other card and, you know, put it into a bag, and, you know, I could sell this to somebody, or maybe I'll give it away, because, you know, USB Gen 5, I mean, you could upgrade from Gen 2 to this if you wanted to, and I'll just put it back in my box, and I can ship off this box or do whatever with it after that. So, but now my Bifrost is completely unisonized, and that is how you take that apart. So, I hope everybody had fun watching this, and I hope you guys like and subscribe. I'll have some more updates, maybe if I get another Bifrost or somebody is kind enough to let me modify theirs, because this one's already modified. I'll show you what you can do to really seriously upgrade this and change the op amps. So, like and subscribe. Have fun, you guys. Take care.